I'm Matt Buell of M Buell Studio, and on behalf of the Woodworking Network, as your young Wood Pro host, it's monthly topic time. So, if you're able to start a woodworking business and maintain it, one of the inevitabilities is you're probably going to come across some jobs where you're working with other people, subcontractors. Some examples that I've worked with over the years would be cabinet makers, interior designers, architects, and other random ones. But those are the ones we're going to stick with this month, kind of talking about from experience. I break it down into two major factors that come into play in working with what I call teammates. The first one is communication, and the other one, professionalism. Both of those, as oversimplified as it sounds, in my years of experience, anytime there's been problems when I'm doing a job in tandem with other people and something hasn't gone right, it always has come down to one of those two main factors. That's why they're kind of my roadmap that I look at, how to conduct myself and how to make sure that I'm setting myself up for success, or at least not going down with someone else's failures. Because that's reality. It happens. So let's talk about it. Communication. This is the big piece of the pie. It's always about communication when working with others. Good communication with other teammates or subcontractors can make a job seamless. It can make it go smooth as all get up. Bad communication creates problems. And problems in a business means loss of profits. An example of that loss of profits could be wasting materials for a redo, wasting your time fixing something that wasn't specified. Communication is key. Now, the most important thing I look at is what you're bringing to the table. So what I'm going to suggest to you are things I've learned, unfortunately, the hard way over the years, about how to communicate well. So everybody has a different way they communicate. Some people use words differently than other people. I'm sure everyone knows this, or you've experienced it somewhere in your life. And that happens in work too. You know, as a woodworker, the terms of the trade that you're familiar with might not be used the same as a cabinet maker uses it. Furniture making and cabinet making can be very different, both great. An interior designer isn't going to maybe understand some of your terms of the trade. So you've got to be really careful and really clear about how you're communicating with people, and also making sure that they understand, which means good listening. The best form of communication that I have found to hold is in writing. Black and white, baby. Your best bet is getting all of your communications with whatever team members you're working with in writing. Email is my favorite. Writing and very overly done detailed drawings. Overkill's great there, my experience. The reason I like this is people can have a conversation and talk about what they're going to do, and then they get busy and they forget. Or maybe they have a different idea of what was said. Writing is an absolute to-do list that you can take from that. It also, in the event that something goes wrong on the job, and the client who's paying for all of these people, like a cabinet maker, an interior designer, an architect, and a woodworker, a furniture maker, something goes wrong, that writing protects you, unless it's your fault, and it protects them from having to overpay multiple people to fix something that one person should be accountable for. Now, I'm not saying this just to give you an excuse to point the finger and blame people. It's just about you're running a business. And by having everything in black and white in writing on what you're supposed to be doing and what they're supposed to be doing, you're covering yourself financially. Because there's nothing worse than getting handed a certain job at a certain place in its process where you come in to do your work, and you're inheriting the problems that someone else caused. Doesn't mean they're bad at their job, they're bad people, but it happens. The difference is if it's in writing, you're not going to be spending money on materials or donating extra time that wasn't in your bid to fix it. So it's really just about protecting your profits, which is fair. It's a business. True stories. I have, in my professional career, run across an architect that designed an entire bar, and they didn't rule for anywhere to mount the wood countertops to. Not that it was wider than this. There was nowhere to allow for wood movement whatsoever. Good communication on the front end can fix those things. I've known cabinet makers, same kind of situation, where they built the underparts of where a wood countertop would go. And even after being directly requested several times for certain spots to secure the top to in certain locations to maximize stability, was never done. That happens. I've had interior designers take my sketches and then farm my sketches out to other woodworkers trying to beat their costs up to get their price down. Emails and in writing are a good thing. I also recommend, in parentheses here, that when you send people sketches, make sure there's a confidentiality notice in that email. It's a good thing. But yeah, I've been there. I've had clients try and ask me to replace hardware for being faulty that I didn't even pick out, that a designer insisted on using, which is fine. Some things go wrong, but that's on their end. They chose it, And it's not because I'm mean. It's because I'm running a business, just like they are too. And it's okay. When I make a mistake, I have to hold myself to the same standard. And I make sure that I make it right with my teammates and make it right with the client. And when I've made mistakes, I do. So, good communication on the front end tackles almost every one of those things I just mentioned. You're looking at the plans before you even touch it. I've gotten to a place when I'm doing work with subcontractors, I want a list. I want it written down. What is required of me? What are my exact expectations that I'm being paid for? And what are the expectations of the other people that I have that I need to be able to do my job? Clear writing, clear boundaries, much better communication always seems to lead into good results. On to the next part. One more thing real quick on communication. Because you are a woodworker, when you're doing stuff with other teammates or subcontractors, the more common experience you're going to have is that when it comes time for you to do your job, you're usually one of the last people. So that job and whatever's being done has already been started and touched by several subcontractors, or at least one. By the time you come in, it's the very end. Having that good communication in place from the beginning, agreements of the job, allow you to come in and not have to bear the responsibilities of any problems you didn't create. Because a lot of times as a woodworker, I have found, because I'm one of the last people to be in line to work on that certain thing, problems fall into my lap. So, good communication, get it in writing. All right, so professionalism, the other major factor that I have found to be a big deal in working with others. So how I define professionalism, or the traits that I consider to be of a good professional. I'll give you a few traits. Being on time for meetings, or being timely for phone calls when they're set up for like a conference call. Get there early. Log in early. 10 minutes. It's just professional. It says you want to be there. That's one. In-person meetings, dress appropriately. Be clean. Probably not going to fly if I'm meeting with an architect, right? What I'm saying is, if you've been in the shop lifting stuff and you're working, you're sweating, grab a shower before you go to meet with the architect or the cabinet guy or the interior designer. It matters. The next thing is being respectful of their time, but also being respectful in your language. I know, I'm looking at the ground here. No potty mouth stuff. Be a pro. Other professionalism would be get your work done on time, especially if you're doing a team kind of project. If you're running behind, you're probably putting someone else behind. that doesn't look good for you. I don't want to work with people that are always putting me behind schedule. Behind schedule means losing money. So there's other little things. I'm sure you can look up all kinds of articles on professionalism, but those are the big ones. If you're going to be a pro, then be a pro. These are the qualities that I have found to be desirable in doing jobs with other people over the years. Those qualities seem to set people apart from the people who aren't still doing it in all their professions that I've worked with, but especially in the ones I've already mentioned and for me. Working with good people can be an amazing experience. Working with people who aren't so professional can cause you a lot of problems. The reason I'm talking about professionalism is because the goal here is that you want people to want to work with you. I like to believe that if I'm doing my job, my communication's good, and I'm being professional when I'm interacting with other people on a team, that I'm walking away from that job when it's done and people enjoyed working with me, that I made their job easier, or heck, I was so good at my job, I even made them look good. That has been my experience, and that's something I've learned from working with other people who had great communication and were very professional. In my earlier years, I was blessed to actually have those opportunities. I got to see what it looked like. And all of the people I'm referencing are still in business. There's been several people I've worked with, they are not. And that is the difference. So be a pro. But you gotta put some effort into the whole personal relations with people and stuff. You've got to kind of be on your best. Here's the best news about it. I have also found that if you conduct yourself like a professional, people are willing to pay professional prices. It matters. One last thing. When you're working on site, like I've done jobs where I'm installing sculptural work, done several like that, or you're sitting around having coffee with an interior designer going over plans, right? Always pay for your own stuff. Do not get caught up in any gossip. You're a pro. You're there to talk about the work, nothing else outside of simple salutations and pleasantries. Gossip doesn't wear well on you professionally, I promise. But also, if you're there working on site with your tools, clean the space after you're finished. I've seen so many professionals leave dust laying around or just not tidying up anything they've moved. I like to leave my space when I'm doing something on site cleaner than when I found it. And I'll tell you right now, clients remember that stuff. It's a big deal. Big deal. Professionalism. All right, young wood pros. So it's a simple and sweet thing. Good communication and be a professional. You're going to end up working with some amazing people who are talented, inspiring. I've learned so much, especially there's one local designer who I work with. She's fantastic. I mean, we have everything lined out to the most minute detail before I even start building. It's wonderful. It's like my cut list was already delivered. Fantastic. And I do good work. Her clients are happy. She makes my job easier. It's fantastic. So good relationships in working with others can happen. Okay? And maintaining these good principles I've been trying to talk to you about is going to allow you to keep working with the people you want to work with, because you're going to make some money. But if you're working with people who don't practice these standards, you're going to end up in the loss column. And once to learn a lesson, I can stomach that. More than once for the same lesson, I find to be inexcusable. So the most important thing you can do, though, is check yourself and what you're bringing to the table. And I highly recommend that you embody what good communication and being a professional looks like. Hold yourself to a higher standard and conduct yourself that way. And you will find over time, people will respect you, they'll want to hire you, and you'll be setting the tone what it looks like amongst teammates, even if they're temporary for one job. It matters. All right. I guess we all need to go take a shower now, huh? Till next month.